The Honorable Prime Minister during Civil Services Day in April 2025 spoke precisely of that. We need to be going forward when we are talking of a Viksit Bharat 2047. We need to have a much more data-driven decision making in order to ensure that our interventions are focused, they are targeted, and that they reach the areas that we want to do so much more effectively. A lot of researchers come forward that the entire PhDs are due to the data that MOSPI has been producing, or the kind of insights that they have been able to draw and use in their work transforms data into stories. I'm finding that the same kick in working with data, how to make data work for people so much more and sweat for people.
Good afternoon and welcome to a very, very exciting interaction for CEGIS, the Center for Effective Governance of Indian States. My name is Manasi. I lead external engagements for CEGIS Foundation, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Saurabh Garg, Secretary for what we call MOSPI, the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, a senior and very seasoned bureaucrat. Dr. Garg, thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Thank you.
Let's start by talking a little bit about your career journey with the star cadre, IAS, various ministries at state and central level. Could you share a little bit about how your experience has been and particularly the stint at MOSPI?
Yeah, thank you. So it's been extremely challenging and interesting to work in. I can go on and on about experiences out there. And of course, government of India itself has been very challenging, very interesting. Talking of MOSPI, data is something which normally doesn't seem to show as if it might be very interesting. But I think how data gets used by people is where the real challenges lie. And we've been doing, for example, a number of data user conferences, stakeholder consultations over the past year. And it's been so nice to hear a lot of researchers come forward that the entire PhDs are due to the data that MOSPI has been producing, or the kind of insights that they have been able to draw and use in their work. So I think that's what really, should I say, transforms data into stories. And that's been extremely interesting and challenging in the last year or so.
That's wonderful to hear, sir. And that really is data, and its use was really something that I wanted to talk about. Because when you talk about data, there's obviously collection accurately, quickly, cost effectively. And then there is the usage of data at all levels, as you said, for decision making. So, how has MOSPI tried to enable the data driven governance model across center, state, and possibly sub state level as well?
Yeah. So our focus on looking at what data that MOSPI generates has been to look at how we can increase the granularity of this, how we can increase the frequency of the data that we produce, and what can be done to improve the timeliness of this data. So in terms of frequency, for example, we've now made the periodic labor force survey a monthly data, and we're also bringing it out quarterly. So that gives us so much more granular information on a monthly basis, both on the rural and urban side. On a quarterly basis, looking at sectoral areas, what needs to be done in which sector. And I think this is what will feed into decision making and help improve policies. I'm just giving one more example of this because there are a number of others. For example, the annual survey of unincorporated sector enterprises. Now the results are coming out on a quarterly basis. So it will give us a sense of how employment is moving in the informal sector, what are the kind of drivers that will help the informal sector to grow, as also to find out where are the problems that are coming up and try and indicate that. The other focus is on how to reduce the time taken to publish the results. For example, now every survey, which is a year annual survey, we bring out the results within 90 days. If it's quarterly, it has to be within 45 days of the quarter. And if it's monthly, it's within 15 days of the end of the month. For example, the price index we bring out within 12 days at the end of the month. So timeliness also ensures that the data is available for decision makers at the right time, because in case you bring it out after a point in time, it loses its value. And the third broad area of our focus is how to ensure that if a data is being brought out at the national level, can we bring it out at the state level? If it is at the state level, can we bring it out at the district level or a sub-regional level, a sub-state level? So that also ensures that this granularity will also be able to ensure better targeted interventions. And I think our tagline, which the MOSPI, is data for development. And that really, in a way, determines that the data has to be used for development. It has to be a data-driven decision making and more evidence-based policy making. If I can just add, the Honorable Prime Minister during Civil Services Day in April 2025, just a few months back, spoke precisely of that. We need to be going forward when we are talking of a Viksit Bharat 2047. We need to have a much more data-driven decision making in order to ensure that our interventions are focused, that they are targeted, and that they reach the areas that we want to do so much more effectively.
That's wonderful to hear. And clearly, yes, as you said, faster, more reliable data. But just if I were to ask, just looking ahead, you've obviously done a lot, made a lot of difference. Any big future bets? We talk about technology a lot. What do you see as the way forward?
Yeah. So, one area that now we have no pen and paper surveys. Everything is computer aided personal CAPI, we call it, which is standard based. So, that straight away improves the timeliness that we can do. But more importantly, it also helps to mentor and guide the field supervisor, field enumerator so much easily, because you can have built in checks done. If there are some responses which seem to be outliers, it can flag it immediately. So it makes these surveys, so improves the quality of these surveys. But I think where we are really going to be using technology much more is in the data dissemination, because now our websites are so much more user friendly. We are trying to do away with all PDFs and image files and have everything which is machine readable. Have the microdata portal so much more intuitive so that people are able to draw in information. And I think that will also improve the quality of research, which is essential because ultimately it's the quality of research which will determine future decisions. So, technology is something that is already in the system. We are looking at AI and what we can do to use AI and ML. And for example, some simple things which are like low hanging fruit is to have chatbots on the enumerators tablets, so that in case there's a question or a doubt that the enumerator has, all that person has to do is that she just has to put it on the chatbot and the reply will come. And this chatbot would be trained, would be a blinkered chatbot only to answer questions based on the MOSPI manuals, guidelines, etc. So similarly, we are putting an improved chatbot on our website where researchers can develop, ask questions and get natural language responses. And again, that chatbot to be trained only on the official data, because any researcher, if that person is putting an answer out there, they don't want it from across the world. They want it from data which is sourced, which is truthful, which is credible. So these are just two examples of that. We are looking at geospatial information, how we can improve our urban maps for that matter, because in the urban areas, changes happen much more frequently than the rural areas. So how we can ensure that the urban listing that we have, the frames that we have, which are used for sample surveys, they are much more updated. So it's a host of areas that we are looking at technology, and let's see how it goes.
No, this is just amazing to hear. And as you rightly said, technology to make the data faster, data collection faster, more accurate, flag discrepancies, and use it for dissemination. So I think it's across the spectrum. So that's really amazing to hear. But clearly, in all of this and work that MOSPI has done, and indeed the government does, what do you see as the role of partnerships? Because clearly the government has a crucial role, but there, as you mentioned, researchers, academics, potentially private sector, the not-for-profit sector. What's the role of partnerships in driving what MOSPI does?
So, I think working with academia, research institutions, not for profits is something which is a focus area for this ministry. I mentioned about the data user conferences and stakeholders consultations that we are having. One is that is also it's a two-way street. It's one way to disseminate our information, our data, but also to get feedback. from what kind of questions we can add. For example, based on the feedback with other departments, ministries, research institutions, we are improving our periodic labor force survey to get more information on the kind of skill levels that they are at. So that will help to design skilling programs. Feedback to get information on the structuring of the questionnaire, what can be done, where there are overlaps, and that will reduce the questionnaire time. So there are a host of things that we are doing. But I think more importantly, we are looking at working with researchers to help us look at problems that we have not yet tackled. For example, we have signed a research project with some of the IIT Kanpur, in fact, to look at how seasonally adjusted inflation indices can be prepared. We are looking with other IITs, NITs, other institutions. In fact, we have signed some more than 15 or 20 different research projects. Some we have a data innovation lab. Some projects they have signed with partners outside. Some we have a research program, 6 or 7 have been signed by them. And we hope to increase this engagement because that's how new ideas come to us. And long-standing problems which we don't have a solution to, we look forward to do that with them. You mentioned about partners with CEGIS. We are working to improve we have a scheme called the Statistical Strengthening of the States. So that we are working with the states to increase states' statistical capacity. So that is something that we hope to work with as we go forward.
Yeah, truly, it takes everyone to contribute. So, just looking back a bit, obviously, I think central to India's statistical system has been Dr. P.C. Mahalanobis, and we honor June 29th as the National Statistics Day. So, just from your experience, what do you think is the significance and what have been his contributions into shaping our system?
So, I think Professor Mahalanobis has made multiple contributions. And I would say not only to the Indian statistical system, but to the global system. One of the first things that he spearheaded is, of course, the setting of the Indian Statistical Institute in 1931. In fact, we would soon be celebrating 100 years
Yes.
of the formation. Then in 1937, he initiated the first sample survey, a jute crop sample survey. And at that time, everyone thought that surveys cannot help you to determine this kind of productivity. He showed that it can be done. And he was instrumental in setting up the National Sample Survey, which is now in 1950, and we are celebrating 75 years of the National Sample Survey this year. He was also the architect of the second 5-year plan in the Planning Commission and set out the basis of the supply use tables and how it can be done. And very importantly, he was the chair or the co-chair of the United Nations Statistical Commission in the 1950s. So he helped shape how this statistical commission has developed. A lot of the sample surveys across countries, whether it's Europe, US, or others, owe their existence to the kind of guidance that he had given out there. So I think it's at multiple levels that Professor Mahalanobis has contributed, and I think it's a fitting tribute to him that 29 June is celebrated as a Statistics Day. I can just add that Government of India has instituted an International Statistics Prize in his name, the Professor Mahalanobis Prize, which is given every alternate year.
Wow, that's just amazing to know. And I think as Indians, we have so much to be proud of our contribution sort of to the world, which I certainly didn't know. So thank you so much for sharing this. You spoke about the Indian Statistical Institute, which has obviously been a flagship institute for training statisticians. How do you see MOSPI working with it? Because obviously building a talent pipeline for the future will be a crucial goal. So how do you see MOSPI working with either ISI or other institutes, academic institutes of eminence?
So one is that given that we are going to be soon celebrating the centenary of ISI, we are working with the ISI management and how we can strengthen ISI, how we can have more centers of ISI, how the number of people that they are training at bachelor's, master's, doctoral level, how that can become, how it can be strengthened, what other support that they would need either from the government or outside government. So it's a holistic view based on a number of reviews that have been done by ISI itself. So that's one portion of it. Apart from that, ISI also, the Indian Statistical Institute also every year trains statisticians from different developing countries annually. There is the International Statistical Education Program, which they run, and it's also celebrating 75 years this year. So done in conjunction with the Ministry of External Affairs. And that's a very important part. A lot of statisticians across the world have been trained. They spend a year at Indian Statistical Institute, get a diploma out there, and they really learn on how things are done. So it's something which ISI is not only working internally, they're working with countries across the globe. Apart from that, we have our own training academy, the National Statistical Systems Training Academy, and we train persons within the government as also with the state government. So that's an ongoing program that is there. And a lot of the ministries' statistical officers also go to the Indian Statistical Institute to have an exposure out there, train out there. And of course, as we go ahead, we are looking at other institutions to tie up. In fact, our National Academy, has signed up with a number of other training institutions so that there's a mutual exchange of programs, because it's necessary that others learn about statistics as well as statisticians know about communication, learn about organizational behavior, and to make them more effective managers.
That's just very interesting and just shows how, yeah, statistics is obviously a deeply technical subject, but using it for management and decision making, absolutely. We just spoke a little bit about training government officials at the state level. So, how do you see the state statistical system? So, there's obviously MOSPI at the center, but then there's the DES or the planning department at states, who are heavy producers and consumers of data. So, how does MOSPI work with states? Because, as you said, a lot of data needs to be granular, state, sub-state, district level, perhaps. So,
Yeah. So we have a support program which we call the Strengthening of the State Statistical Systems. And that is our prime vehicle by which we work with the Directorate of Economics and Statistics, which are there. And all states have them. The only issue is that some states, they are better and more manpower. Others are not so well endowed, whether with terms of manpower or in terms of infrastructure. So, what we are working with the state governments, number one, to ensure that adequate focus is given by them to the directorates of economics and statistics so that it develops well. Training is done of their officers either by them locally or in conjunction with our field offices, that they participate in the different surveys that we are doing so that they can bring out state level indicators, as more importantly district level indicators that they can bring out, look at what infrastructural support that they need so that if that is required through this program that we have, we can assist them financially or in technically. But we see the state statistical systems as integral to the growth of the national statistical system, because after all, a lot of the data collection happens at there. And I would say expanded to just not the Directorate of Economics and Statistics, which are housed in the departments of planning, but each department in the state, as also each ministry at Government of India level, each of them have large and rich data sources, which can really be leveraged to ensure that decisions are so much more evidence-based. And that's one of our major focus on how to harmonize data across ministries, how to ensure that the metadata is similar, how to ensure that there is certainty of release of that data, and that the dissemination methods are uniform and much more user-friendly. So it's a wider program that we are running with the DES, with the state departments and the ministries to ensure that the data systems, the data ecosystem in the country is so much more stronger.
and with this, I think the eventual goal would be, as you said, granular, disaggregated data, reliable data at the district level, which can then be used by officials at all levels for speedy decision making.
Absolutely, that's the idea. And I think one area that we will continue to focus much more on is how we can use administrative data, which a lot of it exists in the government, a lot of it exists in which is not yet made public. So, what is shareable, what is non shareable, that ministries need to look at that so that we look at data gaps where administrative data is not available and only then try and fill up those areas.
Yes, there is a lot that the government has, and you're looking at horizontal sort of convergence across ministries, across departments, down the line, still as complex as India. That's just incredible. So we've spoken a lot about MOSPI, statistical system, Professor Mahalanobis, but I'd like to end by asking you, you've been a career bureaucrat at state and center, and I think for us at CEGIS, governance is not abstract or an academic concept. It's a real concept that impacts the lives of all of us and millions of others. So in your experience, anything that you can share where, first of all, what drew you to this as a career? And then any experience or anecdote that you can share that really shows the human side of what you do.
I think the kind of impact that is possible with working in the government is just too great. I remember early in my career, I spent nearly 3 years in Kalahandi, which was at that infamous for various issues, and it was so heartening and satisfying to be able to ensure that whether the Anganwadis are working effectively, that scholarships to students are being given, that the midday meal program is being implemented, etc. But I think one area where I won't call it an anecdote, but working in a policy intervention, which was looking at cash transfers. And while we did have direct benefit transfers that started, in Orissa, we started cash transfer scheme for farmers, which was called the Kalia scheme, which became then the precursor to PM Kisan. So farmers getting funds year after year, and I think I remember in Orissa, one direct impact was that farmers' suicides decreased significantly from year to year because there was certainty of transfer of these funds from PM Kisan and topped by different state scheme. Each state then had a scheme. But the ability to send funds directly to the bank accounts, which was enabled by the JAM Trinity,
Yes.
and I was fortunate to have had exposure in Aadhaar also, but the Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile Trinity, in terms of ensuring direct transfer, lack of leakages, and the benefits of that certainty of transfers ensured that the farmer was aware that even if their crops failed, they did have this money and they would have some backup available in case they need for various contingencies, including payment of loans. So it's been enjoyable, and I'm finding that the same kick, if I can put it that way, in working with data, how to make data work for people so much more and sweat for people. I think that's what's the challenge.
No, so this is incredible because I think it just shows one, as you said, the scale, which is unmatched anywhere else, but it's the coming together, as you said, of the Aadhaar, of mobile, the Jan Dhan scheme. And then one state does it, it gets replicated across. And I think that's the beauty of India's system of governance. And thank you so much, sir. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience will enjoy it. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed speaking with you.